Senator, in the wake of the Brussels bombings, you issued a statement that said this, in part: we need to immediately halt the flow of refugees from countries with a significant al-Qaeda or ISIS presence. We need to empower law enforcement to patrol and secure Muslim neighborhoods before they become radicalized. What exactly were you or are you proposing?
Well, Shannon, good morning. It's good to be with you, and happy Easter today. You know, this past week, all of us mourned this terrible terrorist attack in Brussels. And we have seen these attacks occurring over and over again. This attack was not a lone wolf. It wasn't an isolated incident. This was part of a global jihad being waged by radical Islamic terrorism. It is a jihad being waged on Europe, being waged on Israel, and being waged on the United States of America. And for 7 years, President Obama and Hillary Clinton and this administration have been so bound up by political correctness, they've refused to acknowledge what it is we're fighting. They've refused even to name it. After every one of these attacks, the president does a national TV conference where he refuses to say the words radical Islamic terrorism. Instead, he lectures Americans on Islamophobia. Well, enough is enough. We need a commander-in-chief who will keep this country safe. You know, one of the consequences of the political correctness of this administration is they embrace policies that make no sense. Obama and Hillary Clinton both support bringing tens of thousands of Syrian Muslim refugees to America, despite the fact that ISIS tells us they intend to infiltrate those refugees with jihadists coming here to kill us. And despite the fact that the FBI tells us they cannot vet those refugees to make sure they're not terrorists. We need a commander-in-chief who is focused on defeating radical Islamic terrorism, on utterly destroying ISIS, and on keeping America safe.
Okay, but how would that play out with patrols in Muslim neighborhoods? What are the practicalities of what that looks like?
Well, sure. What that looks like is proactive law enforcement. What that looks like is addressing the problem and engaging the problem, using every tool, law enforcement, using national security, using intelligence, using the military abroad to defeat the enemy. You know, there was a successful program in New York City that was started under Mayor Michael Bloomberg that did exactly this. It engaged cooperatively with the Muslim community, but it got involved to prevent radicalization, to prevent radical Islamic terror cells from forming, and to prevent any acts of terror before they're carried out. Now, unfortunately, liberal Democratic Mayor Bill de Blasio, when he got elected, one of the first things he did in a nod to political correctness is he disbanded that unit. That doesn't make any sense. We need to be going after where the threat comes from, and the threat comes from radicalization. You know, you look at Europe. Much of the cause of these terror attacks is the failed immigration policies in Europe over the decades, where they've allowed vast numbers of Islamic terrorists to come into Europe. They live in isolated locations where law enforcement often doesn't engage at all, and they're hotbeds for radicalization. It leads to these sorts of attacks. We can't become Europe. We can't follow their same mistakes, and we need our law enforcement to engage and to fight this enemy, which is Islamism. It's different from Islam. Islamism is a political and theocratic philosophy that commands its adherents to engage in jihad, to murder or violently convert infidels, which they mean anybody else, all of us, and to force us to live under Sharia law. And we've got to fight Islamism at every level. This administration is not doing that, and that is why we're seeing the rise of radical Islamic terrorism all over the globe. We need a leader who is prepared to address the real challenges facing this country. You know, I spent the last several days campaigning in Wisconsin. You know what the people there are interested in? How do we bring back our jobs? How do we see wages rising again? I spent a lot of time talking about my positive economic program to repeal every word of Obamacare, to pass a simple flat tax and abolish the IRS, to lift back the EPA and the federal regulations that are killing small businesses, to stop amnesty and illegal immigration, and end sanctuary cities, and end welfare benefits for those here illegally. And Shannon, we do all of that, we will see millions and millions of high-paying jobs, new jobs, manufacturing jobs, coming back from China, coming back from Mexico. We'll see wages going up. We'll see young people coming out of school with 2, 3, 4, 5 job opportunities. That's what Americans are interested in, is a leader who knows how to solve these problems, who has a real and positive agenda. Donald doesn't have that.